From Beyoncé's Lemonade to Black Phone 2 and Slingshot, this award-winning cinematographer has turned visual storytelling into pure art. His lens has shaped music, film, and emotion on a global scale. Let's give a big welcome to the one and only Pär Ekberg.
Hi, Pär. Pleasure to have you on the show. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm great today. I'm looking forward to this talk.
Me too. Yeah, let's get into it. So our first segment is roots and foundations. From Närke to the big screen. You grew up in Närke, Sweden as a boy. What visual moments, lights, landscape, shadows stuck with you and made you think, one day I'll tell stories through my lens?
I think from a young age, it almost sounds like a cliche, but I was always like interested in beautiful things, and I was looking at nature. There was a lot of water in my upbringing. We went sailing and we went fishing, and we were in the archipelago, and there was a lot of moments where we spent time on the coast, especially during the summers. And you know, I think I've always also been a little bit of my internal cogs have always been spinning. There's been a lot of thinking, a lot of trying to figure things out or how they are connected. So I think that's what inspired me to pick up a still camera to begin with. And you know, I got a Voigtländer from my dad. I actually found it the other day, so I thought I would show it to you.
Oh my God. I used to have the same one, actually.
Yeah.
My dad used to have the same one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unfortunately, it sort of it gave up, but I kept it because I don't even know if it's worth fixing. But it was my first look into this world.
That's
where
amazing.
I started to create things with that.
Yeah. So at what age did you start shooting with it?
I was trying to remember exactly when, but I was probably 10 when I started messing around with this little camera. It was funny because my dad was like a technical operational manager at the local TV station where I grew up.
Wow.
And they, you know, back then they shot news on 16 mil.
Yeah.
So they had a whole film lab at his office. So I was fortunate enough to, you know, shoot stuff
with this one,
bring the roll to his office, where by the way, I loved hanging out there. It was like that was like an amusement park for me. It was like, and all the people working there was so fun. So I got to develop my own film. I got to do the prints there, you know, which was a very interesting first step into the visual
all the chemicals
world, you know. It was fantastic, and I actually got to see them do their process and how to shoot 16, and they had a studio and all that. So that was sort of my first glimpse into the world, even if it's very different from what we're doing today.
Excellent. So did you take any classes when you were young, you know, like when you were a boy, 10, or it's all through your dad's experience?
No, it was all actually, it was just that, me picking up the camera, me having the ability to do things with, you know, with the images afterwards. And, you know, therefore, I also shot, almost all of it was black and white, because that's what was possible to process back then. And I actually, you know, ran through my grandmother, and she had a lot of interesting old books, all leather books with tons of like old photography and, you know, news photography from you know, early days. And I remember getting stuck in that, and I think she was probably, you know, she always brought me to like exhibitions and museums and things. And I think it was with her I saw Kertész, Andrei,
Yeah.
the Hungarian photographer, and Robert Doisneau, if you know him. Yeah. So I was like, I found, the black and white photography
Yeah.
at the same time as I was doing it. I was very fascinated about it. And I don't think, I didn't realize what it was I was looking at that point. I was too young, but I found them later, and I could sort of engage in the same world. And it was, sometimes the analysis doesn't show up until later. So I now I sort of understand what it was that I liked with it, but I might not have fully realized back then. But it was a big inspiration.
That's amazing. For working with film, you experiment with. You were saying you experiment with still photography. Is there anything you want to add in terms of lessons you still carry into your cinematography today?
Yeah, I think what looking at all these still images now, I can see what was fascinating to me was the way a story was told within one frame. It's almost like these photographers and their best work, or at least the work that I love the most, was almost like a frame taken out of a movie. Where you can see motion, you can see expression, you can sort of see a story within that still. And I think it was cinematic to me to look at these images, and that was super fascinating. When I was even younger, I remember being like 6 years old watching Charlie Chaplin, and I was like, obviously I didn't reflect on it back then, but the way many of the stories are told with like one pretty wide image where you sort of let things play out, that was always very fascinating to me. And I think there was a upside too, living in Sweden, growing up in Sweden, because the television we had 2 channels. They were both state-run. There was no commercials, but they also had like a wide range of things showing. So you would see, French movies or Italian movies or American movies, or like there was a good selection of things. And since there was only 2 channels, everybody would see the same thing. So we would watch something and talk about it at school the day after.
Wow, that's amazing. Was there a shot or film you watched that changed your perspective overnight? Was there like you mentioned like some of the still photographers, but in cinema,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. There's so many, and I don't know if there's. If I can, specify a specific order, but I know there's been so many like profound movie experiences with, 1900, or, first of all, I think, I pretty early, obviously after Charlie Chaplin, I discovered Roy Andersson, the Swedish director, Ingmar Bergman, of course. And from there on, there was a lot of American movies that came in that everybody wanted to see. Whatever came from the US, we would watch it, no matter what it was. If it was good or bad, it didn't matter. We would go and see it. So obviously, all the blockbusters and Coppola and Scorsese and Spielberg and all those guys, they just came to me, and I was always fascinated by Storaro. That was always a name for me, like, oh, Storaro, I have to see it. And but there's so many, there's so many. Darius Khondji was another like favorite of mine. It still is. I think it's amazing. Gordon Willis, so there was plenty of profound moments with Jaws and Shining and all the big classic movies, for sure. I have one, we and like I said, in Sweden we had a lot of spread. I saw Kurosawa movies as young on TV. like, and I love them. But it's one Boorman movie, Deliverance, that I have a really good story about. So I was out sailing with my dad. We were stuck in a small little harbor, and I was young. I can't remember how young I was, but I was young, like small. And we, the weather forced us to stay in this little harbor, in this little town for a while. And he was like, "Oh, this is boring. Let's go and see a movie."
Yeah.
So there was one little cinema in this city, in this town, and they showed Deliverance.
Yeah.
My dad had no idea what the movie was, and it certainly wasn't a movie where he would have drugged in his young son if he knew what a movie was about.
Yeah.
So we actually watched that movie together, and I thought it was the best movie I've ever seen. And my dad was just shit scared all the way through, that he sort of scarred me forever. But we finished it, and it's still one of those movies that I bear with me.
Yeah, that's amazing. So leap into motion. So tell me about your first assignment as a motion cinematographer. What gave you the confidence to move from still image to moving image?
Yeah, I think, I started to study film history at the university after a semi-successful round at the technical university. Because my dad, even though he was an inspiration, he also told me, like, "No, my son, you have to get a proper job. You cannot work with this stuff." So I did a round at the Stockholm Technical University, which I didn't find that interesting in the end. So I switched gears and I started to study film history at the university. And while I was doing that, I found a job, and it was a small company owned by two brothers, and they produced industrial movies mostly, but also some TV programs. And it was, again, we only had 2 channels. They were both state-run, so it was a very limited amount of like commercial production. But they did everything in-house. They had all the gear in-house. They had cameras, they had sound, they had editing, they had everything. And they were excited about me working there, and they would let me do stuff. So I was actually, doing sound, and I actually did, flatbed editing on a Stenbeck editing table. So, all of that. So that was my film school, I guess. And, I got, they sent me out. I was like, let's go shoot this or that. So I was a one-man band with a camera, and I shot things, and I came home and we developed it, and then I edited it and put sound on it and all that stuff. So I think there wasn't really, it wasn't really, confidence thing. I think, if you would have told me you have to go into this cage with wild tigers and shoot something, I would gladly have done it. So it was, I was just dying to get stuff done. So it was a very good starting platform for me, and I got to do a lot at an early age, and I got to hit the ground running, so to speak. And remember, I mean, back then, we're talking 35 years ago or whatever. There was no way for a normal average Joe to get their hands on a camera or actually film something. It was really tricky. So for me, it was a little paradise there.
Of course, you had access to everything.
Everything.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So struggles and persistence in your early career. What was a moment when you doubted that you could sustain this path, and what you got through that moment?
I think I was always more excited than desperate or disillusioned. I remember one point where, I moved to Los Angeles 20 years ago. Before that, I was based in Stockholm. And I did a lot of, European commercial projects mostly at that point. And I remember being sort of stuck in a commercial rut where I didn't think it was so inspiring, and it was obviously in the back of my head and in my heart I always had like movies or features. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I felt like I was a little jaded or whatever, but I think it's also a career and a job where it goes a little bit up and down. It always does. You know, you're finding your flow, and it goes really well for a while, and then it slows down, and you wonder what you did wrong, but you may not have done anything wrong, and then you start to roll again. And I found like most of the time where I had that sense of being stuck in a rut and nobody understands, and I want to do this, but nobody wants to do that, and whatever. You know, when everybody around you seems to be wrong, that's when I learned to sort of look at myself a little bit and then say, maybe not everybody else is wrong. Maybe there's something closer to me that needs to change. But in general, I think I was always excited to try something new and jump on a new projects and try and develop. And I was watching things, and you know, the way I started, I started very much like copying things that I liked, which was a way forward, I guess. I was like, try to figure out how they did it and wanted to do the same thing. So I always found some sort of inspiration to move forward. And you know, it's the most fun business in the world, and it's also the most difficult one. So I don't, you know, I think a little bit of up and down is to be expected.
Yeah, that's amazing. What was was there a pinch me moment time when you start? You've done like amazing music videos with like Pink, Beyoncé, Coldplay, Taylor Swift, like all the big stars, and ABBA Voyage. How did you get into that? And was there a pinch me moment? Say, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do, or yeah.
I think I always knew what I was supposed to do, and I still know. I still know what I'm supposed to do, even though, you know, I've come far. It's almost like the more you know and the more you've done, the less you know, the more you have to learn. At least that's how I see it. Like, when I was 20, if Spielberg would have called and say, hey, we have a $150 million movie to do, are you up for it? I was like, no problem. And I know now that it would have been a problem, but you know, it sort of goes, I don't know, it goes hand in hand, the experience you get and the realization how much you still have to learn, or how big of a, you know, development is to be had. So but I think, you know, music videos was always a part of the deal. You know, back in Sweden, you know, 30 years ago, we did small music videos, and it was we all fit in one van, and we shot 28 hours instead of 10. And, you know, it was just crazy, and we did weird stuff, and we tried to create new looks, and we tried to push the boundaries. You know, and the music videos are a good venue for that, because it's also like, if you push the envelope a little bit and you get lost in telling whatever stories you're trying to tell, it's like, okay, nobody cares as long as it's visual and things are happening and it looks a little bit unique, then you're gonna get away with it. And it's more about like creating some sort of visual impact. And we did a lot of that, and that sort of continued when I moved to Los Angeles, and it was just the caliber of the artist that changed really. And you know, obviously it's amazing to work with these great musicians and artists. It's fascinating, and it's, you know, they're so good and they're so locked in when they turn it on. It's like a bright light, you understand, even if it's not your favorite artist, you understand all of a sudden, oh my god, I can see why this person is a star, you know. And obviously, it's been a great opportunity for me to be able to do all these things. It's always super fun, always super complicated and interesting in different ways. And also, I think, for the more, it's sort of, the music video sort of feeds the feature work and vice versa. The more expressionistic parts of a feature, I can sort of lean into my experience doing music videos, and vice versa. The more elevated realism, or when things are supposed to be a little bit more serious in a music video, I can take from that side. So it's a crossbreed a little bit, and I enjoy both.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we're gonna take our first break, and we're gonna play a game, This or That, and it's for the audience to get to know you. It's a rapid fire game. Are you ready, Pär?
I think so.
Okay, let's go. Night exterior or interior darkness?
Interior darkness.
Contrasty shadows or soft fill?
Soft lighting with contrast.
Yes.
It's a combination of the two, I guess. Yeah.
Depends on the project and stuff. Long take or hidden cut?
Oh, that's a tough one. I was actually thinking about... Okay, I'm going to be quick. Sorry. Long takes.
LED panel or tungsten practical?
Tungsten practical.
Wide open aperture or deep focus?
4.
Steadicam glide or handheld grit?
Handheld grit.
Silhouette shot or backlit portrait?
What was the first?
Silhouette shot or backlit portrait?
Silhouette.
Natural textures or highly stylized set?
Natural textures.
Monochrome scene or saturated color burst?
Saturated color burst.
And finally, practical smoke or fog or digital atmospheric effects?
Oh, practical smoke for sure, or atmosphere. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to our next segment, deep dive latest films and visual craft. Black Phone 2, a sequel's shadow. Your newest film is Black Phone 2, 2025, directed by Scott Derrickson. How did you approach lighting, color grading, and camera movement to maintain continuity with the first film while also elevating the visual tension?
Yeah, I think obviously the first movie was a big inspiration, and it carried a lot of weight that we also had to be somewhat true to. The movie had a large fan base. It was very popular. Obviously the actors are amazing. The same actors are appearing in, or the same lead is appearing in the sequel, and there was also parts of the locations, their house, for example, or the basement, and things that was returning into this in the sequel. So I obviously wanted it to be somewhat recognizable for the fans who already knew the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it was pretty obvious that we had to have a slightly different approach to this one. I mean, I really like the sort of subdued, dark, soft dark that's in the first movie, and there's some really cool gloomy exteriors that I liked, and it sort of rhymes well with the Denver Rocky Mountains, Colorado setting.
Yeah.
And but I think what the biggest difference is that we had in this script, we have scope on another level. There was landscapes, and there was this winter camp, and there was the lake, and there was a lot of things that offered a lot of scope. And it was also almost a third of the movie was scripted as Super 8. So, I thought I wanted to bring a little difference into the visuals. Mainly if we talk about adding a little bit of contrast, because I didn't want all the Super 8 to be just dark and murky. I wanted it to pop a little bit, to have a little bit of contrast in it.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to, Super 8, it's a tricky format. It's not a good production camera, and not any of the Super 8 cameras are really great for a major production. So, and we also had to deal with a lot of night exteriors where, you need to add a lot of light in order for a Super 8 camera to deliver the image it's supposed to deliver. Shooting your family on the summer beach is great, but once you can't stop down to 5.6, it gets a little tricky, and the format itself starts to sort of fall apart. And we had a lot of tricky stuff to shoot with both special effects and visual effects and action sequences and stunts and all this. So all that reflected a little bit to how I wanted to approach the lighting. I wanted to add a little contrast to it, to have a little bit of highlights here and there. Also, not being too dark in this great vistas that we shot. We shot in this beautiful camp. You wanted to see that it was actually something there, not just a dark backdrop. The snow obviously helped with giving us a little bit of exposure. Yeah. But I also, experimented with trying to put as many practicals in as possible. I developed together with Paddy Podesta, who was the designer, and Scott Derrickson, who directed it. I came up with this idea that we should have heaters in the rooms, the lodging for the at the camp. So there's this glowing heating element that we could use for contrast, and we could also use it as a motivation for backlights or things like that. So, and I think it was very helpful, because also that there was a lot of wooden warm tones, and you wanted to sort of break that up a little bit so it didn't all get in the same brownish hue. So that was one thing, and then I started to experiment with the same idea for the exteriors, where we would have like lamp posts, and I would actually put film lights and have art department dress them so they looked like street lights. So we put those around the camp, and that way I could highlight certain areas, and it didn't matter if I actually saw the source. So it gave me a little freedom. And I experimented with, I wanted to do mercury vapor, a mercury vapor tone on those exteriors, because I thought, I was afraid of going into some snowy, warm, Christmassy feel. So I tried a cool green sort of mercury vapor look. I didn't find it pleasing, and I didn't find it working that well, so I went back to something more like a sodium warm, the orangey streetlight look, and I found that worked a lot better. But there was a lot of testing involved, I started out early doing the LUTs with Joseph Bicknell, who is the colorist that I worked with. Is amazing. So I did the tests and the LUTs, and then we tweaked it and came back and whatever. But I think the original LUT we put in there and the original tests are pretty close to
The final.
where we landed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were doing something right.
Yeah. That's amazing. So Slingshot, White Rooms, and Psychological Space. In Slingshot 2024, much of the environment is a white, antiseptic spaceship interior, minimal oppressive. How did you balance lighting, texture, reflections, and actor movement to keep that space dynamic and psychologically charged?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one was tricky in a completely different way than Black Phone 2.
Mhm.
While Black Phone 2 sort of, well, the Super 8 thing we already discussed, where and I forgot to say, but we always try to keep, some sort of dark areas in the frame.
Yeah.
We always wanted to have that feeling of something can actually jump out
Okay.
at you at any point. You're never
Yeah.
safe. And I just want to add that the Super 8 itself, when you see it projected, especially with the analog sounding soundtrack that Scott put on there, which is sort of this scratchy optical sound quality, it
Yeah.
gets jarring. Whatever is happening in that frame, you're like, oh, this is a little scary. But sorry, jumping back to Slingshot with the white
Yeah.
antiseptic, that was a completely different approach because we wanted to be claustrophobic and
Mhm.
at the same time very clean, as you would expect, like a modern spaceship designed
Yeah.
for people to spend years on this thing, and we try to build the spaceship as small as possible because we wanted to be able to feel that the rooms
Claustrophobic.
are limited and it's claustrophobic and it's not, it's made for a specific purpose. And we also wanted to be able to move pretty much 360 and move from one room to another and through the corridor and into, it's like to do continuous shots like that. So we tried to design it as small as possible, but it had to, fit the 3 actors and 2 cameras with crew. So, there was a balance there. And then how do you light that thing if it's completely closed? Well, most of it is practicals. We worked with the art department to build in everything we needed for the ship to sort of seem functional and also somewhat pleasing when it came to the actors.
Yeah.
And so most of it was already rigged. All of it was on dimmer boards, and we could sort of go through different cues on the dimmer board while we were moving through this ship.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think going back to your actual question, I think that was it was difficult in a very different sense because it was all very cramped and all, a lot of bright rooms where I had to sort of try and create some sort of tension and drama. And there was also like moments where you see the ship starts to behave a little strange and the light changes depending on what they're doing and things. So, but it's a balance. That one was it was fun, but it was hard in a different way for sure.
Just a follow-up question. On Slingshot, did you have time to rehearse like where the camera is going to be and all that stuff? Or did you have, it depends on the project. Some projects probably don't have time to do any rehearsal.
Yeah, no, we always went into it with an intention of, how we would shoot it, and so we were planned out theoretically. It's like this is how we're gonna shoot it, and this is how we're gonna block the scene. We didn't rehearse those parts
Yeah.
But then we were doing the blocking with the actors in the morning,
Okay.
and sometimes the blocking, the way we planned it, worked really well. And sometimes, you know, other ideas came up with the actors, like, no, I don't want to, I feel like I should be on the go when we're talking about this. And then
Yeah.
we changed the whole plan, which was sort of pretty easy in that case, because the spaceship was pre-lit. It was like, it
Yeah.
didn't matter to me if we shot in the galley or in the corridor. It was
Yeah.
just a matter of pushing a button and then adding, you know, I did obviously add some fills and some negatives and whatever, but it was fairly small adjustments depending on where we were doing stuff. And I stayed, a camera stayed on the Steadicam for the whole shoot on that one. And brilliant Hungarian Steadicam operator, Pfeffer Attila, is amazing. And I was like, I actually rewatched the movie a couple of days ago, and I was looking at the Steadicam shots. I was like, this is crazy. Doesn't even look like Steadicam. It has none of the breathing or sway. You can have a little bit of, you know, organic movement to the Steadicam normally. This was just locked in. It's so good.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that was a really fun project. It was like interesting to do a whole movie in basically, you know, 2-bedroom apartment.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So from music videos to feature scale, a continuum, you continue to do music videos, ABBA Voyage, Pink, Paris Hilton, Beyoncé, Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift, etc., while also shooting large features like Black Phone 2 and Slingshot. How do techniques or visual ideas cross over between those two worlds? I think you already covered some of it. Is there anything you want to add?
No, I think I mean again, what I do enjoy with the music video concept is that you're most of the time free to push limits. Most of the time we also have a very limited amount of time, to be honest. But you know, if you come up with a crazy idea, you can probably try it. You know, it's not a lot of sensitivity in terms of, you know, you need to keep it in a constant creative box and not go outside it, because we don't want to break the illusion. It's much looser than that normally. And you can sort of, unless you do something which is really narrative, like, I don't know if you saw the Coldplay Magic video I did, where it's sort of it's a short movie really. So it has a very stringent storyline, and we follow that pretty closely. So, but normally if it's performance and it's you know, a little bit more loose ideas around what's going to happen, then you can play with it. And I also enjoy being able to play with stage lighting and moving lights and things that's not, at least, it's not the first thing you put on the list on a movie, but you can play with that. So, and again, and obviously, like I said, it's the music video things, they feed back into more expressionistic parts of my feature work.
That's great. So technical risk and reward in your work. On Black Phone 2 or Slingshot, was there a shot you pushed technically? That's example, camera rigging in tight spaces, extreme low light motion, you covered most of it, that scared you, but in execution became one of your favorite frame.
Oh yeah, there's a few of those. I think when it comes to Slingshot, there was there was, you know, the whole Slingshot movie, the way I see it, is about John's personal development. You know, he needs to understand who he is and how he relates to the rest of the world, and he has to face his fears and all these things. It's a psychological deep dive for the main character, basically. And there's a lot of weird stuff happening in that movie, but we also didn't want to give too much away. You know, the world around him couldn't be too crazy. We had to sort of believe that he's still on this ship and there's still things going on there that he tries to understand and explain. But we had a lot of like parts in the movie where we could do like flash frames and macros and speed changes, and a thing that it probably has a proper name, but I always call it fake macro. And I remember doing it the first time on a movie cam back in the days, where you sort of take the optics out of the mount, and you hold the optics loose, and you just work focus by opening or closing the gap in the mount. So what it does is basically like, you know, when you put a ring on your still camera in order to do a macro shot, it's the same thing, but you get this floaty, weird focus effect, and it becomes a tilt shift lens at that point. So we did that. I've done that so many times at this point, but it's always fun. So we did put a lot of things like that in, macro shots and weird details and things, but we wanted to keep the weirdness within the realms of the world. So, you know, whatever is revealed in the end, we don't give it away too much in the process of getting there. I think when it comes to Black Phone 2, I mean, the Super 8 stuff is obviously the tricky. That was the trickiest part, and it was also like a few moments where we really had to push the limits of the format beyond the edge of what's visible and not. And then you know, at certain points we also shot Super 16, which we downgraded, and I invented a new format that I called Super 12, which is basically a cropped piece of the Super 16 negative. So we could get high resolution for keys, for example, and still keep a little bit of the grit. And then we could add some bad registration and some defocus and grain in post to reach the same level of weirdness as the Super 8. But especially I really like one sequence in Black Phone 2. There's many nice sequences, but there's one that I always enjoy extra when I see it, and that is Gwen. She's going into this dark cantina at night, and she's all alone, and she knows something is in there, and she doesn't know what she's looking for, but she walks into this darkness. We know it's going to be a bad idea. It's like the classic horror movie moment where don't go in there, and obviously they go in there. So she goes through the cantina and into the kitchen where the grabber shows up, and they have a fight. And there's also the rest of the cast comes in, and they see the fight. And most of those normal people can't see the grabber, so they only see her like flying around without seeing him. And that thing is a lot. I mean, not all of it is film, but most of that sequence is shot on film, and it looks gorgeous. I enjoy it so much, and the stunts are so good, and the whole I think it's one of my favorites in that movie, for sure.
That's amazing. We're going to take a final break, and we're going to play a game, True or False. And it's time to test some quirky facts about your life and career. Are you ready, Pär?
I hope so.
I hope so. Okay. True or false? In Black Phone 2, you use mostly natural light sources in many scenes.
False.
True or false? You mapped out every shot in Slingshot with the previs before filming.
False. We
True
didn't
or
map
false?
it all out.
Not all of it, some of it.
Yeah.
True or false? There was a day on Black Phone 2. Okay, let's try again. True or false? There was a day on Black Phone 2 when the set lost power and you had to imagine lighting on the fly.
False.
True or false? You and Scott Derrickson discussed referencing specific horror cinematography, like Polanski, Kubrick, before filming Black Phone 2.
True.
True or false? You carried over a lighting or framing motif from Polar in Black Phone 2 as a homage to your past work.
False. I can't say I do. Maybe I did, but I not
Yeah. Not consciously.
on purpose. Not consciously.
Yeah. True or false? On Slingshot, the spaceship exterior shots were fully digital and composited.
True.
True or false? You designed a custom lens filter or rig specifically for a scene in Black Phone 2.
True.
True. True or false? You sleep better after a challenging shoot than after an easy day.
False.
True or false? You revisit dailies late at night and sometimes see things in them you didn't see on set.
True.
And finally, our last segment, legacy, advice, and future vision. Your evolving signature, looking over your body of work from Polar, ABBA Voyage, Slingshot to Black Phone 2, how do you see your visual signature evolving? What new elements do you consciously try to introduce now?
I think I evolve mostly per project. It's almost like reading a script or an idea. I'm looking for visual clues, and I'm looking for a lot of times there's ideas that pops up that comes from reading the script or the idea, and I try to honor those ideas, and I try to present those ideas to whoever is directing, and explain why I'm excited about something. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and it often becomes a matter of testing things where you come up with an idea, you want to test it before you actually go to work to shoot the principal photography. So I want to think that I develop a little bit per project. And obviously, I also develop with experience. I also develop with a different new technical achievements that comes out. All of a sudden you try a new light or a new camera or a new lens or whatever, and that brings something new to the table. I also try to watch as much as I can still to find inspiration and find new work that I like. And there's so many. I mean, we were talking about cinematographers and inspiration before, and I think there's so many gifted people now. You can see so many good things everywhere, so there's no lack of inspiration, and I still try to get other inspiration from art or music or other forms of expression as well. But I think hopefully, if we're looking at the future, I hope that I can be able to keep up with developments and how things evolve in our visual language, and how the technical advancements take us to new places on a daily basis. So I think I hope I can keep up with that, because I also find that interesting. It's like whenever there's a new new technological solution shows up, people have a tendency to say, or to think that this specific new thing is the solution for everything. This is what we're going to use now, whether it's, the volume stage. Oh, now we're going to shoot everything on the volume stage. Or it's AI. Everything is going to be done by AI. Or, and I think it's a natural human reaction, I guess.
Yeah.
But being able to actually see these new things for what they are and how you can use them without throwing everything else overboard.
Yeah.
I think that's a challenge, but and hopefully I can live up to that challenge, and hopefully also come up with something that feels a little new or fresh for each new project. And I think it's funny, but I think there's if you look at my history of filmmaking or cinematography, I have such a wide array of things in my portfolio. I do think I have a personal style, even though it's always hard for me to word that. But I also have a very wide range of things that I've done and things that I like to do. So hopefully next project will be something else than what I've done, and hopefully something a little better in some regard. That's my ambition, at least.
That's amazing. So if someone watches Black Phone 2 or Slingshot in 50 years, what emotional or visual memory would you hope remains? What resonance do you want from your images?
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything even remotely close to what I feel when I see Days of the Condor or Alien, the original Alien movie, or Blade Runner or Shining or 2001, whatever, if there's, and obviously they're not gonna feel the same things like I'm mentioning, like a few of the best movies in the history of filmmaking, but if there's some sort of I can look at those old movies and think, okay, they made this look amazing, and it all happened in camera, more or less. And that's such an achievement. And if there's just a smidge of that, somebody watching something that I did, I'll be smiling from a cloud.
Is there a dream project? You've done it all. You've done all these music videos with big stars. You've done films. Is there anything you would like else to do, like or dream project? Do you have a dream project, or yeah?
Yeah, I have so many dream projects. I don't know where to start, but bring me a Western movie, and a good action movie, and a drama like The Piano, or any of those. I'll be very happy. And I also have a personal goal. So I try to make a list of the 10 best movies I've ever seen. The ones that are really life-changing. You walk out of the movie theater and you're like, holy crap, I won't be able to recover. And then it stays with you forever. And I couldn't make that list 10 movies. I ended up with 20 or 25 or whatever. But my life goal is to do one of those.
Okay. That's great. That's great.
If I can do one of those.
So to young eyes behind the camera, for emerging cinematographers, especially in smaller film markets or outside Hollywood, what mindset, habits, or creative discipline must they nurture to survive and create work with visual impact?
I think I often get the questions like, how should I approach this if I wanna pursue a career as a director of photography or something similar. I think my best advice is to actually do things. And it doesn't matter on what scale you do things. It doesn't matter what camera you're using or what equipment you have. The only thing that matters is that you have an idea and you try to pursue that idea, and you can do it with friends. It doesn't matter if you shoot a documentary about your pet, or you make a short film with your friends. I don't think that matters. I think what matters is that you try to contain an idea, you try to visualize that idea, and you work with it as much as you can with whatever means you have, and the hours you put in is going to give you something. Like there's so many things I could not have done unless I had thousands of hours of experience. And it's just, if you're in the beginning of your career or you're just getting started, it's like collect those hours. And it doesn't matter if your friend is doing a short film and you get to be the gaffer or grip or whatever on that film. Be that. You're going to see things. I find that, the best filmmakers and directors, they know what's going on in all the departments. And they sort of have to if they're going to be any good at their job, because then you can start modifying the whole thing. Because it doesn't matter how well planned we are and how good we are at our jobs. Things are organic and things change. You gotta be able to think fast and be on your feet, and learning over time, that helps a lot. No matter what sort of position you're in, really. And I think personally, I have a. It was an upside for me being brought up in the industry in Sweden, because it was so small. So you sort of had to do everything yourself. If it's like, let's paint that wall, or, whatever. It's like, it was very hands-on and no limits, really. And, obviously there's downsides to that. But in terms of experiences, it was great.
Learned a lot,
I learned a lot. And that's my best tip. So just go for it. Shoot stuff. Even if it becomes a turd, what you're doing, you spent, 100 hours making this thing, and you're probably going to figure out why it became a turd, and you're going to do it better next time.
That's true. That's great. Sadly, we're nearing the end of the show, Pär. That's all, folks. Thank you for watching. Pär Ekberg, everyone. Thank you, Pär.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you.